welcome to the I Teed Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 7. What can wildlife teach us about ransomware? So, as I've said before, I live in Colorado, and in Colorado, we are just surrounded by nature. We have plenty of open spaces, mountains, forests to go see. In fact, you walk out my front door and basically, wow, would you look at all this natural splendor? It is amazing. It is glorious to walk out and just go hiking. It takes me 15 minutes to get to a place where I can just be in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but trees. And it's great. But as part of that, we also have a huge incidence rate of animals getting into things. You'll have restaurants who will frequently find raccoons, trash pandas hiding in their dumpsters. You'll have bears that get curious and will open doors and start eating food. You'll even have incidents of mountain lions show up. In fact, earlier this week, there was a family that found a mountain goat on top, not a mountain goat, billy goat on top of their house in Boulder. I think they have a house that backs up to a hill, and goat just jumped from one place to another and got on there. Go Rams, I guess. I don't know. Who is that? University of Northern Colorado? I don't know. Anyways, I don't know if you guys have ever seen what happens when a bear gets into a car looking for food, but it can be disastrous. This happens not infrequently here and other places. In fact, the one that I'm looking at right now is from a Fox broadcast company in North Carolina. And it just shows this car that has been absolutely destroyed on the interior from a bear that got into that car. Bears are smart enough and agile enough that they can actually open car doors that are unlocked. And once they get in, they can't get out. And they just freak out and just destroy everything in there because they can't get out. So because of this, this is an example of where animals are attracted to human food. They smell the food, they see this tasty treat, and sometimes humans oblige. Humans will feed bears. Humans will feed the animals outside. I had a next door neighbor who would insist on putting out food for her cats. And well, I understand if you have 15 fucking cats that you have to feed them, my God, lady, there's a limit. There's a limit. I'm sorry, but there's a limit. Now, to be fair, she did take care of my cat, which was very nice of her. She's a very sweet lady. But 15 cats, and she'd have to feed them, and she would put the food outside. But that would attract animals like foxes and raccoons. And the unfortunate part is that sometimes those animals are sick. They have rabies or some other disease that can transfer to pets and sometimes transfer to humans in the right condition. I mean, if you buy a rabid animal, you now have rabies. And so there's a significant amount of risk anytime you feed wild animals, whether it's purposeful or not. I mean, she's trying to feed her cats. She's trying to make sure that her outside cats get fed as well, but she's also feeding all of these wild animals, and it's risky. And in fact, it can be wildly risky and even just bad. I mean, like, I don't know if you guys have ever smelled fox pee, but if you've ever bought a Christmas tree, a natural Christmas tree that they raise up from the ground, and they actually just they don't chop the top of a tree off, they actually take the tree out from the ground. Some of those small Christmas trees that they chop down will have been tagged by foxes. And while the tree is outside in the cold, you don't notice anything. But as soon as you get that tree set up and it warms up enough in your house, the fox pee will start to evaporate. And the only thing I can equate fox pee to as a smell is cat pee if it were a chemical weapon, because that's basically what fox piss is. It is so bad that it's like your nose is so sensitive to it because it's like skunk musk. It is so very bad, and foxes will tag anything they can. It is amazing how much they'll pee. They're like dogs, Vulpus vulpus, but they are not. They tag anything they can. They're like dogs in the fact that they tag everything they can, but they're like cats in that their piss is just awful, and it doesn't wash off. You have to wash it. It's I don't know what it is. It's like an oil base or something like that. And it just is impossible to get off of surfaces. At any rate, that is a small example of how wildlife can interact with humans, and when you feed a fox, they can tag your area, and it will smell awful for a long time. And so, just don't feed foxes. Just don't feed them. I mean, foxes are cute. I get it. But man, don't. Just don't. They're It's risky because you don't know what's going on. You have no idea what's going on with that fox. Well, even the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, not the U.S. Department of Dairy or Dairy Administration or whatever. The U.S. Department of Agriculture states that you should not feed wildlife. And there are several reasons for it. Human food is not healthy for wild animals. Feeding leads to public health concerns. If animals get too accustomed to people who feed them, birds who are fed by humans often become victims of aircraft, and that can do property damage to the aircraft. And large concentrations of animals can actually pollute the water and surrounding area. So it's just like, don't do it. And in fact, feeding animals is not infrequent that ducks who are fed in duck ponds that freeze over, those ducks can be frozen to the pond and become frozen so that they basically are sitting ducks, and that they are just easy prey for other animals. So it's not just detrimental to humans in both the direct, indirect, and both directly and indirectly, but it's harmful to the animals in a lot of ways. So you don't feed them. Well, what the fuck does this have to do with ransomware, you might ask? I'm glad you did. Because let's discuss ransomware. Ransomware is a symptom, not a cause. It is not the root of a problem. It is not something to watch out for. And I think that's a huge misconception. And I want to kind of clear that up here, is that ransomware is not something that you can defend against, because you're not defending against ransomware. I mean, you can defend against it. You can stop specific ransomware tasks and things like that. But the thing is that ransomware is not the problem. Ransomware is the cough after being sick. It is the bleeding out of your nose. It is I don't know, think of any horrible thing that has to do medically that is a symptom of a problem. You don't go to a doctor to treat I don't know, the hair loss that comes from a cancer, the cancers that's causing the hair loss or whatever. I don't know. The point here is that ransomware is not the base concern. It should not be the base concern. You should stop individuals getting into your environment. That is the concern. That is the cause. But everybody seems to want to pay attention to ransomware specifically because of how dangerous and detrimental and harmful it can be to a company. Ransomware is very public. It seems like a very personal attack, and it seems it is just so very, I guess, direct. It just doesn't seem like it's fair. And it's news organizations a lot because of how effective it is, I guess. So to get into a little bit more, I've had one client who's been hit by ransomware, and we were able to stop it before it got much further. We have several different mechanisms to stop ransomware. We have crypto canaries, which analyze the operations on a hard drive, and basically when it detects encryption mechanisms, specific encryption mechanisms, and pairs that with particular types of file generation, it sends an email out that says, we've got ransomware, and then we go and investigate and confirm or deny. We also have encryption detection schemes in our EDRs. We have various different prevention tactics for ransomware. So even if an attacker gets in and starts launching things, it's going to be a lot harder for them to defend or to initiate their software to start the ransomware process, to start the encryption process. And I guess I should have at the beginning gone back and explained what ransomware is, and I'll do that now. So ransomware, if you don't know, ransomware, all it is somebody encrypts your files with an encryption scheme and a password that is only known to them. And then they send you an email or a file or something that alerts you to the fact that your files have been encrypted, and that you then must pay them a ransom to get your files back. And there are a lot of different variants of ransomware because, again, all it is just encryption. It's not hard to create your own unique brand of encryption. It's not very difficult for those who are into it. And so there are just tons and tons and tons of different variants of ransomware that you can be infected with. And the root cause of ransomware is that somebody has gotten into an organization or an environment and has gotten enough access to start encrypting sensitive information and information that you need to get out. And ransomware has sort of it's evolved since its initial creation. Since 2016, ransomware has not just become this, we've encrypted your files, pay us, and then you can decrypt them. It's become this, we have encrypted your files, and now we want you to pay us. And if you don't pay us, we will just simply release your data that you have. We will release it out to the world. And there's no guarantee that you will ever be safe from us, because we have exfiltrated all of your data to our own servers. So you have no guarantee that we're ever going to delete this. And so the ransomware has not just been a single problem. It's now evolved into this whole string of issues, these whole possibilities that are kind of endless. And so looking at ransomware as a business, ransomware has just done an absolute amazing job. Like, if there were a way to invest in ransomware, this would be the best investment you could have ever made. In 2023, in the first half of 2023, it was reported that attackers have extorted at least $449 million and have worked their way up to a target of $1 billion or more. The actual business impact of ransomware attacks has been estimated up to something like $1.2 trillion. And so it's an insane amount. There are an insane amount of businesses that have been affected by ransomware. And so when you get infected by ransomware, again, the attacker is going to be asking you to pay them. And there are a ton of circumstances, and there are a lot of different ways that these attackers will choose to attack you and do things. But most commonly, when they attack you, when you get ransomware, they first encrypt all of your information, then they send either an email or they bring up an alert image onto the computer that says your files have been encrypted. This is what you have to do to get them decrypted. And typically those requirements are pay us in Bitcoin, pay us this amount, do not contact the authorities, do not delay, do not negotiate. those are usually the conditions by which an attacker will demand to get in. And again, I want to make sure I am absolutely clear on this. This is not the initial cause. The attacker got in somehow into your system and has been looking around in there, and you did not catch them when they got in. You did not catch them as they were digging around, and now you have not caught them when they have run an exploit. So there are a lot of points of failure here which you can target. The first being them getting in. In order to defend against this, which we'll talk about towards the end here, but in order to defend, first and foremost, you need to stop them from getting into your networks, and that is possibly the best place to start the prevention process, is prevent them from getting in. So, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of effort. It is amazing how much you can prevent yourself working from work or pain if you just do the preventing, if you just prevent the thing in the first place. So anyways, so ransomware payments are some of the most egregious demands that you've seen, and they get a lot of news because they can be high dollar amounts. Henry Schein was held up for something like $500,000 for their data, which, by the way, Henry Schein was not just compromised once, twice. They've been compromised 3 times now, and their data has been encrypted each time. And so this is an example of somebody who's not learning their lesson. And part of the ransomware payment process is, or part of what has happened because of this whole ransomware payment process and this ransomware awareness, is that people have been getting cybersecurity insurance so that if they do get ransomware, they can have their insurance pay it, which can be a good thing. But here in the United States, at least, a lot of insurance carriers are choosing not to pay claims for a lot of various reasons. One of those reasons is that insurance companies are starting to identify that ransomware actually can be ransomware can be an act of war, and so they choose, and your ransomware cybersecurity companies are actually, cybersecurity insurance companies rather, are starting to deny payment based on that information. They're saying that if you're getting ransomware, it's by a nation state hacker, and that nation state hacker is performing an act of war, because a lot of times it can be an organization like Iran, which is an enemy of the United States, and therefore any act is a declaration of war. Or it can be North Korea or China, which is also not necessarily an enemy, but definitely not a friend. And even at friendly countries, hackers from friendly countries can be seen as an act of war by insurance companies. Insurance companies are just going to look for any possible way they can avoid paying you. One of those ways is by making what they do, and this is a good service, is that when you pay for cybersecurity insurance, one of the things that they guarantee is that you can hire a threat intelligence person or a response team through them. They'll actually send their own response team. The problem with that response team is that they will oftentimes be looking for the things that you've done wrong and looking for any possible way that they can justify the insurance company not paying you. You didn't do this thing that you said you did. You didn't do this thing that you said you did. You didn't have proper controls here, and things like that. And so cybersecurity insurers are starting to become less and less, less and less useful. They're not paying these things because they're paying at an exorbitant rate. Because since 2016, ransomware payments have gone through the roof. To give you a comparison, the average payment in 2022 was something like, depending on your organization and depending on who hacked you, it was something like $100,000. And now the average payment is somewhere around $500,000 to $1 million, depending on how you average it out, I guess. But that's an insane amount of growth, and I can see why insurance companies wouldn't want to pay that. In fact, if you look at your cybersecurity insurance plan, you may see that 20 that your cybersecurity insurance plan does not include ransomware as a covered incident. 21% of organizations have stated that ransomware is now specifically excluded from their policies. This was in May of 2024, and it was from an article from Security Magazine, which is a cybersecurity magazine presenting all of that information for you. Yeah, it's definitely an entire thing that can happen. So even beyond that, ransomware payments can now be considered illegal as well. Paying the ransomware can be considered illegal. You can actually be charged for this, and as a business, you can be fined a great deal of money on top of you've already paid to the ransomware to the hacking party. And so the way that they consider this really depends on who's hacked you and who's claimed the the hack on you. Because what the Department of Treasury basically has said is that if you're going to pay a foreign party such as Iran, you have now violated the embargo against Iran and can be brought up on espionage charges, which is huge. That's a real big charge to be that's really big to be charged with that. And so even paying the ransomware is risky because you might be charged with a crime if you're going to pay the ransom. So what does this mean for you? So what does this mean for you as somebody who's going to be defending against this or paying for this? Or how do we defend ourselves? What can we do? So let's look at the whole thing. You get ransomware, somebody's been in your organization, they have your data, they have encrypted it, they're asking for payments. It may be illegal for you to pay. The payment may be well out of your means to respond to. Even if you have insurance, your insurance company might cover the payment, and they might even charge you for the labor that they attached to this by sending a response team out. What are your ways to defend against this? What are your ways? I'm going to state right here that do not pay the ransom. Let me say that again, and let me say it more emphatically. Do not fucking pay the ransom. Whatever you do, do not pay the ransom. Do not encourage these motherfuckers to hack other people. That is like full stop. Do not pay. So, what what does that mean? Why don't we want to pay? Well, just like with wild animals, you don't want to feed a wild animal because you're going to don't know that the food you're going to feed it is good for it. You don't know that that animal isn't going to be hurt later on because they're going to expect food from others. You don't know that they're not going to grow dependent upon that food. But moreover, that animal is then going to search out other humans to get food from, and that is dangerous, which is just like what will happen if you pay the ransom. If you pay the ransom, that's going to cause that group to go search for payment elsewhere. If everybody just stopped paying ransomware, this would stop. They would no longer want to do business. They would no longer waste their time on this process. And there are ways around this. There are ways to help you. There are people that you can go and get. There are things that you can do as an organization to defend against yourself. The CISA, the FBI, both have programs. I know that the ransomware will tell you not to contact the authorities, but the FBI and the CISA both have programs where you can enroll and have somebody sent to you to respond to a ransomware incident. Sometimes it's even free of charge, depending on the type of organization that you have. And that type of organization is is essential business. Just like when COVID happened, essential businesses, their definition is a broad definition. So even if you don't think you're covered underneath this, it's still worth it to check out. The other things you can do if you get hit by ransomware is you can send the information out. You can have help. The FBI has over 100 decryptors for various different strains, various variants of ransomware, and so the FBI can actually be able to just decrypt it. Moreover, having proper backups of your data can prevent you from having to pay for a ransomware. That $500,000 that they're going to charge you for your data decrypted, that $500,000 can be spent at a very, very, very robust backup system. You can have an entire backup system and plan for much, much less than it would take to pay a ransomware. And so those are some ways to defend against it. But the biggest way, like I said, the biggest way to defend against ransomware is to stop it before it starts. Get in and stop the actual cause of the problem. The symptom is not the illness here. Ransomware is not the illness that we need to be defending against. We need to be defending against people getting access, unauthenticated, unauthorized access into our systems. Security awareness training our users to understand when they're getting phished and stop handing out credentials to other organizations. Password rotation, when your password gets compromised, or even if you suspect your password has been compromised, change it immediately. Education, make sure that your users understand how their normal day-to-day operations work, and when something is different, when something unexpected happens, that they raise flags. Make sure that they become aware of when something doesn't look right, because they're going to be the first ones to tell if there's an attacker in place. And in fact, every time I've had an incident where somebody has been compromised, the users are always like, well, there was a strange thing that happened and I didn't say anything at the time, but you think that's related? And yeah, it was related every single time. That weird thing that happened was related. The mouse moving by itself, the application suddenly appearing or disappearing, all of that was related to the actual attack. And so, making sure that your users are educated and that they're trained to identify this sort of thing. And moreover, having the proper defense techniques in there, having crypto canaries, having encryption detection mechanisms, having encryption prevention mechanisms in there, having proper security stacks in place so that encryption can be detected and prevented before it gets a giant bulk of data. But moreover, again, one of the thing I wanted to focus on was do not pay. That is the absolute worst thing that you can do for everyone, including yourself. Paying ransomware only allows these guys to continue doing what they do. It only encourages them to hit other people. If you pay the ransom, it will harm all the other efforts that are being done to prevent this sort of thing. It's going to encourage them to continue to do this. So just don't pay it. And I know that can be very scary. That can be an extremely daunting thing to make. I have never had to make that call. I've never had to be like, okay, we're not paying this. But you have to hold true to that. You have to not pay. You have to figure out a way to prevent. We collectively have to find a way to prevent these attackers, prevent these bastards from ransomwaring everything and going after all these companies. It doesn't pay for them to ransom. And we need to hold true to that. We need to make sure that these guys are not going to talk us into making them pay, not going to scare us into paying them. And while again, it is very, very scary when you get ransomed, to not do that, because basically what you're doing is you're going out without a safety net. You're risking everything for forever, that you're risking that you're never going to be able to decrypt your information. But that's not necessarily true. Again, the resources that we have at our disposal, the FBI, the CISA, the various defense companies that you can enlist, everybody can help defend against this. And I've run into this kind of personally. It was funny. Earlier on in my career, I was doing an interview with an organization. It was a healthcare organization, and I was in this group of guys who it was a group interview. A bunch of these, it was like 15 guys all asking me questions, and one of their predefined, pre-planned questions was, "We get ransomware. What do you do?" And I kept answering, okay, well, initially, if we have a ransomware canary, I'm just going to turn off the machine, and then it's not going to be ransomware anymore. And then it'll allow me to go back in and take a look and try to de-infect the machine. And then hopefully we can just move on. And then they're like, okay, what if they've already gotten all the machine? What if they've gotten ransomware and already got all the machine? And then I go, okay, well, if they've gotten the machine, then we're just going to recover from backups. Well, what if they got the backups? Well, then I'm going to contact the FBI to try to recover this. And they wanted me to answer, well, pay it. We have to pay it. And I was like, no, you never, ever pay it. Even earlier on in my career, when asked about ransomware, never pay the ransom. There will never be an opportunity where paying the ransom is going to be better than the alternative, which is restore from the backups that they can't get to, or get the authorities involved to try to resolve this issue. So again, I know it sounds scary, and especially when you're in the middle of being attacked and you have this very poorly spelled and grammatically incorrect page up staring at you, has a countdown timer on it. I know the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's attached to it can really be hard to get past, but we all have to work together and push to make sure that payment of ransomware is not a thing. It just doesn't happen. And there are task forces that are working on this. There are special companies that you can call to help defend against this. So if you do ever get compromised, it is worth it for you as an organization to prepare and plan to contact these folks for your benefit, because it will only help you in the future to prevent to pay them, and it will help everybody else. So that's this episode of I T'd Myself. You can check out all of the links in the show notes. And if you guys would like to reach me, again, you can reach me at any of the places where you found this podcast. You can leave your comments there. You can go to simplecasts.com or go to it'dmyself.com/podcast or podcast.it'dmyself.com. You can also reach me at Matthew@it'dmyself.com. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.